My wife's sister shouted, "Why are you ignoring your wife?" I shot back, "Oh, maybe because she's screwing your husband." What I did next made everyone panic. Sup, Reddit. Look, I'm not the type to air out personal stuff online. But after what went down, I figured some of you might appreciate hearing how a missed anniversary dinner turned into the most organized takedown I've ever executed. I, 32 male, and my wife, Maris, 30 female, have been together for 6 years. She's smart, driven, and climbs the ladder fast. I used to think that was admirable. Turns out there's a difference between ambitious and willing to step on anything in your way. So, there I was, sitting in our living room at 9:07 p.m., watching the clock tick by. We had reservations at 7. White tulip sat in a vase by the window because I'm apparently the kind of guy who still does romantic gestures. But I wasn't sitting there feeling sorry for myself. I was sitting there putting pieces together. Maris's phone went straight to voicemail. She texted back in a meeting. "Can't talk." That was at 8:45 p.m. on our anniversary on a Friday night. 14 hours at the office with Vaughn, her brother-in-law, her boss, the guy who'd been monopolizing her schedule for 3 months straight. Yeah, I was already connecting dots. I didn't know what I was looking at yet. I just knew the story didn't match the timestamps. When Maris finally walked through the door, she didn't just enter. Heavy leather bag hit the bench with a thud that bounced off the walls. She didn't glance at the flowers, didn't look at me either, just kicked off her heels right there in the entryway and left them where they felt like someone else would pick them up. "Don't even start with me," she snapped over her shoulder, already heading toward the kitchen like I was just furniture. I stood up, didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. "It's our anniversary." She laughed. "Not the good kind. The kind that cuts." Vaughn buried me in quarterly reviews. "I don't need your guilt trip on top of it. Next time, don't assume I can drop everything for dinner plans you made without asking me first." I watched her face. The way she delivered that line, too smooth, too practiced, like she'd been rehearsing it in the car. That's when I knew for sure something was wrong. Nobody gets that defensive without a reason. "Interesting move," I said. "Stand me up, then make it my fault for noticing." "Oh my God, here we go. The victim routine." No routine, just calling it what it is. I kept my voice level calm. "You blew off our anniversary. Your boss kept you late again. And somehow I'm the problem for expecting basic respect." She went upstairs without another word. I grabbed the tulips and dumped them in the trash. Not because I was hurt, because they were pointless now. I stood there for a minute, looking at those flowers in the bin. $45. Sure, but more importantly, proof of a pattern I'd been watching develop for weeks. Vaughn, the guy who'd given the best man speech at our wedding 4 years ago, talked about family and commitment and building futures together. Real inspiring stuff. Now he was the excuse for everything. His wife, Eloine, Maris's older sister, always played hall monitor at family events, calling people out for showing up late or forgetting to RSVP. She noticed everything, filed it away. The kind of woman who kept receipts on principle. Last Christmas, I watched Vaughn work the room at Eloine's party like a politician, shaking hands, making eye contact just long enough to seem genuine, then moving on before someone more interesting walked by. He'd cornered Maris by the bar for 20 minutes while I pretended to be interested in Eloine's cousin's vacation photos. At the time, I'd thought it was work stuff. Now I was recalibrating the whole evening. If I had been the passive guy Maris thought I was, I would have just gone to bed and tried to smooth things over in the morning. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started taking notes. I expected nothing. I prepared anyway. The next 3 days were pure ice. No yelling, no apology. Just this new version of events she'd bring up every time she walked through the kitchen. "You made it a thing. You pressure me constantly. You don't trust me to handle my own career." Most guys would chase, try to fix it, apologize even when they didn't do anything wrong. I don't chase. I observe. So I watched her routine shift. Later nights, more emergency meetings. Van's name dropping into conversation like breadcrumbs. I moved my calendar off our shared app, pulled my card from the joint autopay, and started drawing clean lines. No drama, just preparation. She thought I was sulking. I was building a file. Started with her gym schedule. She'd always gone Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m. Now it was sporadic, random nights. Said she was getting home late from workouts. But her hair was never wet. Her gym bag stayed in the car untouched. Phone went face down whenever Van's name popped up, which happened more than it should have for a guy who was supposedly just her boss. Late on the third night, my phone lit up on the nightstand. It was 11:43 p.m. "I'm staying at the office," Maris said, voice too careful. "Audit week. Van needs everything locked down by morning." I could hear the echo of an empty parking garage in the background. Dead giveaway. "I'll pick you up," I said. "What? No, that's ridiculous. I'll be outside in 20. You're being ridiculous and controlling." 20 minutes? I repeated, and hung up before she could argue. I grabbed my jacket and left. The drive downtown was empty. Monday night, streets all but deserted. I parked across from the building where I could see the main entrance. Her gray wagon sat by the curb with hazard lights blinking. Tow-away zone. Careless or confident nobody would check. I sat there longer than I want to admit, thinking maybe I was about to embarrass myself for nothing. At 12:17 a.m., the door opened. Maris came out without her coat. Hair twisted up in that messy bun she does when she's been pulling at it all day, staring at her phone like it was the only thing that mattered. And right behind her, this guy in a suit stepped out with his hand raised like he was making some point in the air, gesturing about something. Vaughn, I'd seen him at family holidays, Thanksgiving 3 years running, Christmas last year at Eloyne's place. He had this way of bouncing between charm and command like it was a competitive sport. Could make you feel like the most important person in the room, then cut you off mid-sentence when someone more interesting walked by. They stood there talking. Too long, too close. Body language doesn't lie. He touched her shoulder. She didn't pull back. Then she spotted my car. Her whole body stiffened. Good. Let her know I see it. She walked over and yanked the passenger door open. "I told you I didn't need a ride. This is embarrassing." "Get in," I said flatly. "This is exactly what I mean. You're so controlling." "Get in the car, Maris." She let out a breath, dropped into the seat, clicked the buckle, and turned to stare out the window. The streetlight washed her face pale. The silence between us wasn't just tired. It was loaded. She was waiting for me to break, to ask questions, to give her an opening to lie. I didn't. I just drove home in silence. Let her sit with it. Let her wonder what I saw and what I was thinking. The not knowing would eat at her more than any accusation I could make. We hit every green light on the way back, which felt like the universe telling me to keep moving forward. Morning came. I drove Maris back downtown without conversation. We hit the curb outside her building at 8:05 a.m. She stepped out without looking up. Phone already taking all her attention like I was just an Uber with benefits. That's when this young woman intercepted me. Neat blazer, nervous eyes, hair in a high ponytail that made her look more serious than her age suggested. "Are you Maris's husband?" she asked quietly. I turned. "Yes." She didn't move closer. "Can you prove that? I need to know you're actually him before I say anything else." Smart. I pulled out my wallet, showed her my license. She studied it for a second, glanced back at the building entrance, then at me again. "Can we talk somewhere private?" She was already scanning the sidewalk like she expected someone to appear. "Not here." I studied her for a second. Professional clothes, but her hands were shaking slightly. This wasn't about a scheduling conflict. This was either confirmation or a very weird misunderstanding. "There's a coffee shop around the corner," I said. "I know." She was already walking back to the table. "Give me 2 minutes head start." Her voice told me this wasn't casual. I parked legally, sent a text to reschedule my 11 o'clock meeting, and headed over. She'd claimed a table half hidden by a potted plant facing the door. I ordered a black coffee at the counter before sitting down across from her. She didn't waste time. "I shouldn't be doing this." "Then don't," I said. She swallowed hard. "But I can't watch it keep happening." "Watch what?" She slid her phone across the table. Her thumb hovered over the screen before she tapped play. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m. last night. Conference room with the lights dimmed. Maris, no coat. Hair down now, moving a stack of printed slides around. Lips parted like she's mid-sentence about something. Van walks in. He doesn't say anything first, just puts his hand on her waist like he's done it 100 times before. Like he knows exactly where that spot is, even in the dark. She turns toward him. They don't rush it, don't hesitate. It's smooth. They start kissing like they've been doing this for a while. I watched it once, didn't blink, didn't react, just absorbed the information and started calculating next steps. I'd suspected it. Now I had proof. It isn't the first time, the woman said quietly. Her name was Shay. IT security according to the badge clipped to her blazer. That explained the access. How long? I asked. Few months that I know of, she admitted. He tried it with me last year. I shut it down. So he tanked my performance review. I've been documenting ever since. He picks favorites, gives them late hours, special projects, makes them feel chosen. When someone complains, he calls it mentorship. Everyone looks the other way because his numbers are good. And his family, I corrected. She nodded. His wife is your wife's sister, so nobody wants to touch it. I leaned back, made a short list of next moves in my head, and started checking them off. Send me everything. Use a private email, not your work one. I'll handle the rest. I cut her off because she needed to hear certainty, not worry. I can't stop them from being petty, but I can make it expensive. How? You can't promise that. I can promise I'll try, and I keep my word. I slid a business card across the table. Fresh email account. Send it all. Then delete the account and don't talk to anyone about this meeting. She bit her lip, then pulled out a flash drive from her pocket. There's more if you need it. Screenshots of him assigning her travel after hours. Calendar block she hides under audit prep labels. But he's the only one there with her. I took it. Smart move coming to me. Will you stay calm? She asked. I picked up my coffee. What do you think? I asked Shay later why she'd taken such a big risk approaching me. She said she'd watched 3 other women at that firm get chewed up and spit out by Vaughn's system. One quit, one transferred, one took a settlement and signed an NDA so tight she couldn't even warn the next victim. She decided someone needed to break the cycle. I removed Maris as my emergency contact at work. Updated the form with my brother's number instead. Stopped the automatic transfer I'd been sending her for this side project she kept almost finishing but never quite did. Took my passport and a few important documents from the home office and put them in the small fireproof box I keep in my trunk. Canceled our weekend barbecue with the neighbors. Sent a light text about rescheduling for next month. Deleted the streaming login from our living room TV and set up a guest profile without access to my accounts. Not petty, protective. Clean lines before the war starts. That evening, I pulled our joint bank statements, went back 6 months, started cross-referencing restaurant charges labeled client development with nights she claimed she was working late, hotel minibar charges from business trips, parking fees that matched badge swipe timestamps perfectly. Her statements were paperless, which was annoying. Half the charges were buried under client meals, like she thought labels were magic. Then I checked mileage reimbursements against actual locations. The numbers were wrong. Way wrong. She was expensing personal trips as business travel. Van was approving fraudulent reimbursements. I made a spreadsheet. Dates, amounts, GPS coordinates from photo metadata on her posted pictures. Saved it 3 places as locked down as I could make it. Took me 3 nights and a call to my buddy who does forensic accounting. I hated every second of it. The affair was embarrassing. The expenses were illegal, and I had both documented. I didn't sleep much that week. I was dragging at work. Kept it quiet so I wouldn't look like the guy who got cheated on and turned into a detective. By Friday, I parked downtown in front of the old brick building where my family friend kept his law office. Mid-60s, round glasses, the kind of patience that survives bad traffic and worse coffee. He looked up when I stepped in. Reed, hey, what do you need? I told him everything. Not the emotional version, the tactical version. The missed dinner, the pattern of late nights, Van's increasing presence in her schedule. Then I told him about Shay in the video. I didn't dramatize any of it, just described the timestamps, the hand on the waist, the routine of it all. My lawyer listened without filling in the gaps for me. When I finished, he steepled his fingers. You've been pulling historical records. 3 months of activity documented, bank statements, badge logs, expense reports. Week 1 of the pattern was when Vaughn started assigning her these late-night projects. Week 12 is where we are now. Good instincts. What's your goal? Clean divorce, financial protection, and I want consequences for both of them that go beyond my personal situation. He's been doing this before Maris. He'll do it after. I want the firm to know exactly what they're protecting. He nodded slowly. Smart. Human resources is a waste here. They exist to absorb impact for the company. The partners are the only ones who can pull the lever on Vaughn. Partners won't act if he controls the revenue. Right? But there's a shareholders committee. He turned a legal pad toward himself and started writing. You aim above the partners straight at the people who sign off on audit letters and fiduciary responsibility. You include a clause about retaliation against informants. Keep the tone clinical. Attach timestamps, log entries, travel approvals. Make it hard to argue. Can you route it directly? I'll file it with the committee's outside counsel. Creates a record they can't bury easily. He adjusted his glasses. Collateral damage will include your wife. I know that's the point. Are you ready for that? I was ready when she chose Van's schedule over our anniversary. I said, everything after that is just execution. He gave a small, sad smile. You're colder than I expected. Not cold, focused. He slid a document toward me. Start your own separation now. Finances, living routine, social calendar, no more joint fronts. Makes the next part cleaner. Already started. The retainer hurt, but I paid it. If this backfired, I'd look insane. Worth the risk. On my way out, I stopped by my office. I run logistics for a mid-sized distribution company. Nothing fancy, but it keeps things moving. My second in command is this guy, Jory, who nods once and handles things without turning it into a production. I briefed him in neutral tones that I'd be less available next week and he'd need to run the Tuesday stand-up meeting. You good? Jory asked. I'm executing a plan. Same thing. Need backup. Just keep things running here. Weekend arrived dressed as strategy. Saturday morning, Maris called down from upstairs with a voice that said she'd already made all the decisions without consulting me. As usual, strategic session in Chicago, she announced like she was informing staff. Back Sunday. Don't wait up. I was at the breakfast bar, organizing receipts into neat stacks. Utilities, insurance, subscriptions, creating order out of the chaos our finances had become. Have fun, I answered, not looking up. You don't even care where I go now. She walked into the kitchen with sunglasses perched on her head. Even though we were indoors and it was barely 8 a.m. designer shades she'd bought last month without mentioning the price. Most husbands would at least pretend to be interested. Enjoy your trip, I said evenly, still sorting papers. She stood there like she was waiting for me to ask questions, to give her an opening for more lies. I didn't. We'll talk when I'm back, she finally said. Sure. She rolled her suitcase to the door, paused with her hand on the handle, waiting for something. I kept my eyes on the receipts. The door closed behind her. I watched through the window as she loaded her bag into her car. Gray wagon, same one I'd picked her up in outside the office. Same one that had been parked in that tow-away zone while she was inside making out with her boss/brother-in-law. I gave it 5 minutes. Then I called my lawyer. She just left for her fake Chicago trip, I said when he answered. Timing finally lined up, he replied. I could hear papers shuffling. Come by in an hour. We'll finalize everything. After she left, I met my lawyer again at his office. Saturday morning, so the building was quiet. He wasn't thrilled about weekend hours, but he squeezed me in. We loaded everything onto his desk. Video clip, calendar screenshots, travel records, badge swipes, expense entries. 3 months of evidence she had compiled, plus my own documentation cross-referencing the same period. Thorough doesn't begin to cover it. One receipt in particular stood out. A jewelry store charge from 6 weeks back. $800. I'd never seen any new jewelry on Maris, which meant either she bought something for herself and hid it, or Van was getting her gifts. Neither option made me feel great. He wrote 2 letters. One to the Shareholders Oversight Committee and outside counsel. One to their professional liability insurer. Same evidence, different framing. Why 2? 1 letter they can try to bury. 2 letters to different stakeholders. They can try not to act. The insurer doesn't play. He slid a 3rd document forward. Preservation demand goes out Monday 7:30 a.m. with everything else. After that, anyone who touches evidence becomes a legal exhibit. He adjusted his glasses. Shay is named as a protected witness in both filings. Any adverse action against her triggers immediate escalation. And the divorce? I'm filing the petition this morning. Emergency weekend filing through the e-court system. He pulled out another set of papers. Once that's processed, we serve Sunday night at Vaughn and Allowance Place. While Maris is still there pretending to be in Chicago. I raised an eyebrow. You tracked her location, photo metadata from her social media. She posted a picture this morning and the GPS coordinates embedded in the file put her at Vaughn and Eloyne's house. Amateur hour. The papers include copies of all evidence. The video, the expense fraud, everything. We serve them both at once, in front of Eloyne. That's nuclear. That's coordinated. He slid the packet toward me. Process server goes at 8 p.m. Sunday. You should be there to witness. I signed where he indicated. No hesitation. Stay at your brother's after, he added. When this blows up, you want distance. I shook his hand. Thanks. Thank me when it's over. Saturday afternoon, Shay texted. It had announced a routine server maintenance window for that night. Weekend maintenance at a firm that never does weekend maintenance. Van had been asking questions about security footage retention. I called her back, told her it didn't matter. We had copies in 3 places. If they wiped logs before the preservation demand landed Monday, it wouldn't save them, but it would drag this into a longer, uglier week. She calmed down. I told her to keep her head down and wait. If she bailed, I still had my own records, just less clean. Van was getting nervous. Amateur move. Should have stayed calm. Sunday evening rolled around with the kind of quiet that comes before everything blows up. I pulled up to Greenbrick at 7:52 p.m. Vaughn and Eloyne's house sat on a manicured corner lot, all stone and glass, and the kind of landscaping that requires a full-time crew. Maris's gray wagon was parked in the circular driveway right next to Van's black sedan. The process server pulled up at exactly 8 p.m. Professional clipboard, business attire, the works. I stayed in my car, engine off, watching. He knocked, rang the bell. The door opened. Van stood there in weekend casual. Polo shirt, khakis, barefoot, looking relaxed until he saw the clipboard. Vaughn, yes, you've been served. The papers hit his hands. Have a good evening. Van's face went from confusion to recognition to pure panic in about 3 seconds. He looked down at the papers, flipped the first page, and I saw the exact moment he understood what he was holding. What the? He looked up, but the server was already walking back to his car. Then Maris appeared in the doorway behind him. Hair down, comfortable clothes, glass in hand. She looked over his shoulder at the papers. What is that? I watched her face cycle through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, panic, then something calculated, like she was already working on her story. Her hand went to Van's arm, and he flinched away like her touch burned. That's when I got out of my car and walked up the driveway. Slow, deliberate. Maris saw me first. Her face drained of color. Reed, what are you doing here? She tried to recover, forced casual. Reed, relax. This isn't what it looks like. Before I could respond, headlights swept across the driveway. A white SUV pulled in behind Maris's wagon. Maris had already started walking toward me. One hand raised like she wanted to explain something. Reed, please just let me. I turned my back on her, faced Eloyne. Instead, she stepped out with an overnight bag over one arm, keys in hand, expecting a normal Sunday return from her mother's. She took one look at me standing there with my back to Maris, her sister frozen mid-plea, Vaughn holding a legal packet with shaking hands, and her face did that slow shift from confusion to calculation. "Why are you ignoring your wife?" Alone snapped at me, loud enough that at least one curtain across the street moved. I didn't raise my voice. "Maybe because she's screwing your husband." Everything stopped. Van's hands twitched like he wanted to crush the papers and pretend that would undo time. The packet slipped and scattered across the porch, and Maris went stiff like her body forgot how to be a person. Elo's keys hit the driveway and bounced, and she didn't even notice. A porch light across the street clicked on, then another. I nodded at the scattered papers at Vaughn's feet. Divorce filing, preservation demand, video, badge logs, expense fraud, everything your lawyers are going to hate. Allowance stared at Maris. "You told me you were in Chicago." Maris opened her mouth, then closed it like she'd finally run out of scripts. "You texted me from the hotel?" I continued, voice getting sharper. "You sent me a picture of the view." Van tried to step toward her. "Alone, listen. Don't." She held up a hand. Then she looked at Maris. Really looked at her. "You're in my house. You said you wanted to grab something. Didn't know you were screwing my man." "I can explain," Maris tried. Yellow repeated, voice deadly quiet. "In my house, with my husband, after lying about Chicago." Somewhere down the street, a dog started barking. Across the street, a guy in gym shorts was already on his phone, pacing like he was debating whether he wanted to be involved. Then the universal suburban instinct kicked in. Record first. Intervene. Never. I saw at least 2 phone cameras pointed our way. Alawan turned back to Vaughn. "I'm calling the cops." "Don't," Van said quickly. Too quickly. "Let's just. Everyone calm down. We can discuss this inside." "Inside where you've been screwing my sister." Elo's voice cracked. "Inside our house?" Maris finally found words, pointed at me. "You set this up. You planned all of this." I replied calmly, "I just documented it." Alone grabbed her phone from her pocket, started swiping. Her face changed with every screen. "Sunday audit prep with M." She read aloud, "Every Sunday for 3 months. M. Maris." She looked up at Vaughn. "You deleted these from your work account, but they're still on the family sync." Van went pale. "Elan, please." She scrolled further. "There's more. Lunch reservations for 2. A hotel confirmation in my name. He booked a hotel using my points account." She looked up and her voice dropped to something scarier than screaming. "You used our anniversary trip miles to take my sister to a hotel. 3 months." Elo's voice cracked. Something shifted in her posture. The shock burned off, and pure rage took its place. "In my house? In my bed?" She moved before anyone could react, crossed the space between them in 2 steps, and grabbed a fistful of Maris's hair right at the root. Maris screamed, tried to grab Eloine's wrists. "Let go." 3 months. Elo yanked hard, pulling Maris sideways off the porch step. "You slept in my guest room last Thanksgiving. You hugged me at Christmas. You looked me in the face and lied." "Alone, stop." Van tried to step forward. "You don't get to speak." She didn't even look at him, just twisted her grip tighter, pulling Maris down to her knees on the driveway. Maris was crying now, both hands trying to pry Eloine's fingers loose. "Please, I'm sorry." "You're sorry you got caught." Alone gave one more vicious yank that pulled strands of hair away in her fingers. Then she released her grip and shoved Maris backward. Maris fell onto the stone driveway, one hand going to her scalp. Clumps of hair scattered on the ground between them. The whole thing lasted maybe 8 seconds. Raw, messy. The kind of violence that happens when someone's whole world breaks at once. One of the neighbors had come out onto his lawn now, arms crossed, phone in hand, recording everything. Face caught somewhere between concern and pure entertainment. I could see his wife behind the curtains doing the same thing. The suburban ecosystem runs on gossip, and this was premium content. By tomorrow, everyone on that block would know some version of what happened. Most versions would be wrong, but all of them would include the phrase "ripped her hair out." Some reputations you don't recover from. Across the street, phone cameras were definitely recording now. Dog was barking somewhere. Didn't matter. Alo was already turning back to Maris, breathing hard. Get out of my robe. Voice flat now. Controlled. The kind of controlled that's worse than screaming. Right now, Maris looked around, but there was nowhere to go. She was on a residential street in someone else's bathrobe, on her knees, hair ripped out, with her husband and her sister's husband both exposed. The whole neighborhood was watching. She stood up on shaking legs and untied the robe, revealing jeans and a thin tank top underneath. She threw the robe at Elo's feet and started backing toward her car. There was a visible bald patch forming where Eloin had torn the hair out. Elo didn't move, just watched her sister retreat. I walked back to my car, started the engine, left before my name became part of anybody's story. As I pulled away, I could see Eloin on her phone through the window, probably calling her attorney. Van was scrambling to gather the scattered papers from the porch. Maris was fumbling with her car keys, hands shaking too hard to find the right one. She dropped them twice before finally getting the door open. When she pulled out, she scraped the bumper of Vaughn's sedan. Didn't even stop, just kept driving, the grinding sound echoing down the street. Fitting. She'd been scraping through other people's lives for months. Now her own was finally showing the damage. I stopped at a red light 2 blocks away and allowed myself a small nod. By the time that light turned green, I was already thinking about next steps. Monday morning hit Sutton and Hale like a bomb. I heard later that Vaughn tried to spin it, told the partners it was a personal vendetta. A jealous husband making wild accusations. That lasted 40 minutes, until the insurer's investigators started asking about expense report discrepancies and why someone had attempted to access the security footage server at 2 a.m. Saturday morning. Turns out trying to delete evidence during an active preservation demand is the legal equivalent of lighting yourself on fire. Jory texted me at 8:15 a.m. Your wife's firm just went into full lockdown mode. Security memo, IT freeze, external lawyers on site. What did you do? I texted back. Sent documentation to the right people. Here's the thing about corporate lawyers. They don't do feelings. They do exposure. Once you put expense fraud plus executive misconduct plus deleted logs in writing to an insurer and an oversight committee simultaneously, the whole place moves like someone pulled a fire alarm. The preservation demand had landed at 7:30 a.m. sharp. By 8 o'clock, their IT department was locking down email servers and badge access logs. By 8:30, outside counsel was in the building, the kind of lawyers who bill 4 figures an hour and don't smile. The insurer had sent their own investigator before lunch. The firm-wide memo landed at 10:12 a.m. sanitized, but clear enough for anyone paying. Tension. An executive on administrative leave. A manager separated for conflict of interest. External counsel conducting review. No names in the memo. Names were everywhere by lunch. Anyway, I didn't gloat. Just confirmed next steps with my lawyer and got on with my day. Maris texted at noon. We need to talk now. I responded, coordinate through attorneys. Keep it written. She wrote back, you humiliated me in front of my entire family. I typed, fraudulent expense reports and affair with your brother-in-law did that. I just provided documentation to the appropriate oversight bodies. She didn't reply after that. My lawyer sent the separation agreement and settlement terms at 2:40 p.m. simple, clean, comprehensive. Maris's lawyer would receive them within the hour. She came by that night. I met her on the porch. Didn't let her in. Read, please. Can we just talk like adults? Signatures only through counsel. I lost my job, she said. Like maybe I'd missed the implications. Do you understand what you've done? You lost a job where you were committing expense fraud and sleeping with your boss. Different situation. You're cold. I'm accurate. They'll blacklist me. My career is over. People are already talking. People always talk. Question is whether what they're saying is true. In this case, it is. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked like what happens when consequences catch up. We could start over. I'll do whatever you want. New boundaries, new. No, not a negotiation. Just information. Fine. Email the paperwork. Already in your inbox. Have your lawyer review it. Tuesday morning, we met at my lawyer's office. She signed the separation agreement and asset division documents without looking at me. No questions, no bargaining, just signatures and silence. Her lawyer kept shooting me looks. He looked like he wanted to object to something, but the evidence was too clean. No leverage, no room to maneuver. The divorce itself would take a few months to finalize, but the financial split was locked in. After lunch, I got a text from Shay. They restructured my role. Last day is Friday. I called her immediately. She was shaking. Said it was budget cuts. Classic. My lawyer filed the retaliation complaint that afternoon. Shay was named as a protected witness, and we documented the risk in our original filing. Their HR director called her twice. First with threats about reference checks, then with a suddenly different tone after outside counsel explained what protected witness retaliation actually meant during an ongoing insurance investigation. By Friday, Shay had severance, 3 months paid health care, and a reference letter their lawyers wrote themselves. Not because they were generous, because fighting it would have cost 7 figures and made everything exponentially worse. They tried to scare me into backing down, she said when we met for coffee. Then they paid me anyway. That's how institutional pressure works. They test for weakness first. When they don't find it, they pay. She smiled. So, the contractor gig at your company that's still happening? 8 a.m. Monday. Badge will be at reception. Jury's expecting you. You applied through the staffing agency. Our HR vetted you. I wasn't part of the interview process. Everything clean. 3 weeks later, the rhythms settled into something cleaner. House was mine. Schedule was mine. Shay started her contractor gig and turned out to be exactly as sharp as I thought she'd be. Jory called her a great addition. I told him I expected her to convert to full-time within a year and start making real moves. Vaughn landed somewhere eventually. Small firm, different city, significant pay cut. The kind of job you take when your LinkedIn goes from senior partner to available for opportunities and stays that way for 5 months. His separation from Eloyne went faster than mine from Maris. She'd already had the locks changed before Monday's memo went out. Professional. As for Maris, word traveled fast in professional circles. Being tagged as a conflict risk on separation docs makes recruiters nervous. She'd applied to 3 competing firms. All 3 passed after reference checks. She eventually landed a contract position. 6-month renewable, no benefits, no upward track. The kind of job you take when your previous employer's HR department uses careful language that technically isn't defamatory, but functionally ends careers. The real damage came from something else, though. Alawan told me Maris had finally figured out Vaughn's play. He'd been setting her up as the willing participant, the junior manager who'd pursued him, the liability shield if anything went wrong. His lawyers had drafted memos painting her as the instigator. She called me crying. Alone said when we met for coffee that she finally realized she was never the special one. She was the expendable one. The sigh. That's the thing about being someone's asset. Assets get liquidated when the balance sheet needs cleaning. About a month after everything settled, I pulled into my driveway to see Maris's car parked across the street. She was leaning against it, arms crossed, waiting. I got out and walked toward my front door like she wasn't there. Reed, wait. I kept walking. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I stopped at my porch, turned around. You've got 3. She walked up the path, and I noticed she looked different. Thinner, tired around the eyes. The designer sunglasses were gone. So was the attitude. Her hair was styled differently now, swept to one side to cover the spot where Eloyne had ripped a chunk out, still growing back. I made a mistake. You made a series of choices, I said. She flinched. I know. Van made me feel important and I got caught up in it, and I threw away everything that actually mattered. I leaned against the porch railing. Waited. She tried the whole new boundaries, posting up, whatever you want pitch, like I was a subscription she could reactivate after the free trial went bad. No, I said. Not a discussion. I know how it sounds. You're not here because you grew a conscience. You're here because the landing didn't stick. She opened her mouth. If things worked out with him, you wouldn't be on my porch. I'm sorry I hurt you. I mean it. I studied her face. She probably did mean it. People usually do once the consequences arrive and they need something. You want to know something? I said. Our anniversary night, when you came home and blamed me for making dinner plans without asking. I knew right then something was wrong. The way you delivered that line, too smooth. That's when I started keeping notes. You were tracking me from the beginning. I was watching patterns. You made it obvious. She stepped closer. So, you admit we both made mistakes. We could work on that together. That's impressive. You just tried to turn my tactical awareness into a relationship repair project. That's not what here's my answer. No, not maybe, not, let's see, just no. She glanced past me like the house was still partly hers. Is this because of Shay? Shay works for me. We're not dating. I paused. Also, calling her a traitor is insane. Her face did that thing people do when they realize there's no angle left. You need to go, I said. Don't come back. She stood there for another few seconds. Then she walked back to her car. I watched her drive away without a second thought. Then I went inside, turned on the game, and enjoyed the silence. Guys, we are so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come